or places to stand. Wrap up those conversations. It's 7 o'clock. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight for this mayoral candidate town hall that is being brought to you by the Riverview Neighborhood Association, the Maple Ridge Neighborhood Association, and Mvskoke Media. Before I introduce the candidates, I do want to take a moment to give some gratitude to our host tonight. Donnie Rich over here serving you up at the bar. Mr. Steve Liddell, the owners of this fine establishment. I can't say enough about these guys. They hosted Riverview Neighborhood's block party this past summer, and they charged us exactly $0. They're hosting this tonight, and they charged us exactly $0. And they're folks that believe in community coming together, and they're assisting in that effort. And I just want to say thank you to Donnie, to Steve, and to Shrine, and Jeremiah back here on the sound. Thank you so much, guys. I want to say a word about our presenting sponsors. You're sitting in the neighborhood just barely. It's known as Riverview neighborhood, and just to the east of this, at the Midland Valley Trail, it becomes Maple Ridge, and then down to the south is all Maple Ridge. And we are two neighborhoods that are uniquely positioned in Tulsa, just right outside of downtown, and we have issues that are unique to our neighborhoods, and we wanted to kind of come together to present to you these candidates for mayor. Because our issues and the things that we deal with in this little pocket of Tulsa might be different than other parts of Tulsa. And so all the questions that we have for the candidates tonight have been brought to them by the neighbors within Riverview and Maple Ridge, with the exception of the other presenting partner, which is Mvskoke Media. And I'm super honored and proud to have Mvskoke Media that is right now presenting this live online. Mvskoke Media is the independent media outlet that covers the Mvskoke Creek Nation. This land that we are on right now is a creek allotment, and I came into relationship with Mvskoke Media through some work that Riverview Neighborhood Association has been doing to try to preserve and protect and promote the Creek Council oak tree. And so I thought it was only fitting, as we're sitting on a creek allotment, this land with Dreamkeepers Park within our purview, and the oak tree, that they would be the presenting media sponsor for tonight. So we're super thrilled to have Mvskoke Media here tonight as well. Well, let me introduce the way the evening is going to go. I'm going to introduce the candidates. They're going to give an opening statement. And then we're going to have 3 rounds of questions presented by each of those presenting sponsors tonight. Mr. Kevin Rice, who's the president of the Maple Ridge Association, will begin with questions that have been gathered from his organization. Then Mr. Braden Braden Harper. I'm so sorry, Braden. We'll be giving 20 minutes of questions from Mvskoke Media. Braden is the managing editor of Mvskoke Media. And then I'll come back up and give the last 20 minutes of questions concerning Riverview Neighborhood Association. So let me introduce our candidates tonight. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for taking the time to come and interact with us and share with us your vision for Tulsa. I want to introduce first Mr. Jayme Fowler, over here all the way to my far left. Jayme is a homegrown Tulsan, born and raised by 2 Tulsa public school educators. He graduated from Memorial High and went on to receive his bachelor's in finance, and later earned prestigious accolades from the Wharton School of Finance and Harvard. Jayme has built a successful 35-year career in the private sector, gaining invaluable business experience, solving complex challenges, and creating jobs. He is currently serving a second term as Tulsa City Councilor from District 9. Welcome, Mr. Jayme Fowler.
Thank you.
Here closest to me, we have Ms. Karen Keith. Karen is an experienced public servant who has served as Tulsa County Commissioner since 2008. She also served as the Director of Community Relations and Vision Implementation for Tulsa Mayor Bill LaFortune, playing a pivotal role in advancing and executing Tulsa's transformative Vision 2025 projects. Before her public service work, Karen was an anchor, reporter, and executive producer and host of Oklahoma Living. A graduate of Oklahoma State University, Karen is married to Patrick Malloy. The couple count among their family Gulnara Teragachova, a former exchange student, and her daughter Samaya, who live in the Netherlands. I did practice that.
That was good.
Thank you. Miss Karen Keith. And lastly, we have Mr. Monroe Nicholes. Monroe's family has a history of public service. His grandfather was a pastor, his father served as a police officer, and his mother spent her career as a criminal justice and higher education professional. Monroe played football at the University of Tulsa while studying political science and economics. He later earned a master's degree in public administration from the University of Oklahoma. In 2014, Monroe co-founded a nonprofit called Impact Tulsa, focused on helping students in the Tulsa area. He also served on the Tulsa Technology Center Board of Education. In 2016, he made history as the first African American elected to the House District 72 in the Oklahoma State House of Representatives. Currently, Monroe serves as the Director of Policy and Partnerships for Strive Together, a national nonprofit working to eliminate disparities and improve outcomes for vulnerable children and families across communities. Mr. Monroe Nicholes. So candidates, I'm going to give you some time here to introduce yourselves. We'll give you 3 minutes each to give an opening statement. This evening is particularly awkward for me because I have 3 children back home who are really confused about what is going on here tonight, because a year and a half ago I was elected the president of the Riverview Neighborhood Association, and in their young minds, they just think I'm like the ruler of the world. And I told them I was going to come moderate a mayoral town hall, and they said, "Aren't you the mayor?" And I said, "Well, I am, and I'll make sure to keep them in line while I'm here." So that's kind of my job tonight, and these other moderators that will be up here. We have some set questions that we've already given to the candidates. But we do want to kind of keep things in line and keep things moving, because we'd like to get through all the topics that we have chosen for tonight. So I will introduce, or I'll let them give their opening statements, then I'll give just a few guidelines, and we'll hand it over to our first moderator for the evening. So let me start with Mr. Jayme Fowler.
Well, Chris, thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and thank you for having us. And Mvskoke Creek Nation, thank you for working on the telecast. It's really interesting. So I got here a little early, and I think the gentleman behind the bar, Don, yeah, he said, "No, this is not the place. It's moved. It's gone somewhere else." So, and then Chris says, "You have some opening comments." I go, "Well, great." So here we go. A little bit about myself and why. Number one is this, is native to the city, born and raised. I just dearly and deeply love the city, and I've been blessed, and so many people down through the years have helped me. And the one thing I want to do is just literally give back to the city. I have an abiding love for the city. My mom and dad were public school teachers. They were public servants. They instilled in me and my brother a servant's heart to love everyone and to make the world a better place. I left in the oil bust in late '84 and came back in 2007. I've worked in major Wall Street firms out of San Diego, Los Angeles, New York, and Houston. I've lived in Charlotte, Atlanta, Dallas, Birmingham. Got back here in 2007. We've rebuilt the core of the city over the last dozen years, and that's really, really important. I think for the next, as we go forward on the horizon, is that we really need to start growing the city. And, we read about cities each and every day. I think that we need to do it the Tulsa way. I think we need to do it in a very prudent and thoughtful and responsible way, as opposed to just simply unchecked, unbridled growth. And I think Tulsa's best chapters have yet to be written, so really excited to be here tonight, and thank you all for having me.
Thank you, Jayme. Next, we hear from Mr. Nicholes.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the Riverview Neighborhood Association, Mvskoke Media, the Maple Ridge Neighborhood Association for putting this event on. It's very exciting to be here. I do want to introduce before I go. There's my bio. There was a lot about my family, and my mother is here somewhere. I'm not exactly sure. Oh, she's way in the back, actually. Yeah, okay, there she is. Mom, yeah. My mother, and I'm just going to take a couple minutes because I do appreciate her so much, and I'm glad she's here. She is the reason that I'm up here, but she also plays an important role in the life of this community. She runs the workforce programs at Tulsa Community College, which includes the prison education program, working every day to give people a second chance, and so I really appreciate her contributions to this community. And it is that example that brought me into public service. I feel like ever since I've been in this community, coming as a college student in 2002, I've represented Tulsa in some way, shape, or form. I had Tulsa on my chest as a football player. I walked out of there, walked right into City Hall working for Kathy Taylor, working for the city of Tulsa. I left there and worked as chief of staff at OU Tulsa, then spent some time at the Tulsa Chamber and founded Impact Tulsa and serving on the Tulsa Tech Board. So everything about the life of the city has been what I've dedicated my career to in public service, and the name Tulsa has been there every single step of the way. I represent this community right now in this Oklahoma State Legislature, and I'm ready to bring the experience of all those things that we've done together. Together we created 18 after-school programs when I was at City Hall. Together we began the work of cutting the life expectancy gap when I was at OU. Together we worked to create jobs at the Chamber and improve student outcomes at Impact Tulsa. And I'm ready to bring all that to City Hall. I think this is a critical election, one of the more important ones we had in a long time. And it's so important that we are honest about the challenges that we have in this community. We fully meet them, because that is the way that we capitalize on all the amazing opportunities that await this community. I'm looking forward to the conversation tonight and how we get there. And I hope by the time this meeting is over, that we can start to align around a vision for the city that puts Tulsa second to none across the country. Thank you all for being here. Look forward to tonight.
And lastly, Ms. Karen Keith.
Thank you. First of all, thank you all so much for coming out, because it is citizen groups like this that help inform all of us on what we need to do moving forward. And I absolutely love this city, and I love that the Creek Nation is here today as we stand on the old reservation property, and I am so grateful to the Mvskoke Nation for all that they have done and are doing for this state. So thank you all so much for being here. A little bit about me. Yes, I worked in broadcast for 26 years, but that seems like a long time ago. But it was an absolutely wonderful experience. I got to travel all over the world, and I was just talking to a woman who said, "Hey, have you ever been on a ride-along with the police?" I said, "Yes, last week, and it was a great experience." She said, "Were you scared?" I said, "No, I've been in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, and I've been all over Russia and the Komi region, and I've been around. So I've been around the block a bit, but I'll tell you what, I have enjoyed so much in every single job that I've ever had. And working for Mayor LaFortune, I left broadcast to come and work for Mayor LaFortune because I was concerned about what our downtown wasn't. If you all remember when we did Vision 2025, I mean, the streets were rolled up at 5 o'clock, period. And it was an honor to work with the community. What do we want to do? What do we want to invest in? And I think all of us know that following Vision 2025, our downtowns came back to life. We invested in ourselves, and we dramatically changed the trajectory of all the communities in Tulsa County. And I'm so proud that I got to work on that. I mean, we spoke to every single group. If you were standing on the corner, we were talking to you about why this thing needed to pass. So every Rotary Club, every Kiwanis, you name it. But it was a wonderful experience. But what is fantastic is now 20 years later to look back and see how far we've come. But there's more, obviously, that we need to do, and there's some topics that we'll be talking about tonight. And I think we've all got some ideas on how we can continue to move this forward. But I can tell you this job is not a stepping stone for me. I've been 16 years at Tulsa County, and I know there are things that really do need to be fixed for Tulsa County, and I think I can put all of my experience working with other people, collaborating across party lines to work for this city, and that's exactly what I want to do. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you, Commissioner Keith. Well, as the candidates were doing their introductions, they got a little taste of of Miss Karis Rutherford down here at front. She's our placard. She's our Vanna White for the night, is what I gave her the title of. And so when you give your responses to the question, the candidates will each have 90 seconds to answer the question, and Karis and Lauren down here will be holding up. You're getting close. You're really close. You're done. Little placards. And the moderators that will be leading through the questions will try to move that along. So candidates, I ask that you limit your responses to 90 seconds to each question that's asked. I would also ask that you would direct your responses to the audience that is gathered here to hear from you tonight and not to each other. I think something that, as we collaborated together, that was important to us was that this is an environment where we can openly discuss ideas and not get into a position of adversarial debate. That is not the feel we wanted to have tonight. So I would ask that you direct your responses to the audience that has taken the time out to come hear from you, particularly on these issues. So the first moderator I want to welcome to the stage tonight is Mr. Kevin Rice. Kevin is the president of the Maple Ridge Association, and he will have 20 minutes to ask 4 different questions to these candidates. This is Kevin Rice.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. So I had very little to do with putting this together. I want to give a lot of credit to Chris. I think he was primarily responsible. Also, John Spilliards from our neighborhood. He's recently relocated to Tulsa from Austin, and he had a lot to do with this as well. So thank you, John. I also want to thank Donnie and Steve-O for hosting this at the Shrine. This is a great place in our city. Real quick, my name is Kevin Rice. I am the president of the Maple Ridge Neighborhood Association. I am a native Tulsan. I left after high school, went to Tennessee, moved to New York, and back to Tennessee, to North Carolina. And my wife and I relocated back here in 2013. And about 3 months after that, I got involved with our neighborhood. And I've been involved since and been the president through, I don't know if you guys remember COVID. I started right before COVID, so that was fun. But I love our neighborhood. I love the city of Tulsa, and I love connecting people to Tulsa. So I've been a lot of places, lived a lot of places, but nothing compares to this city. Also want to thank these candidates. Thank you for taking on, well, first of all, thank you for all your public service to this point. And thank you for trying to take on this role of our great city. I know it's not easy. It's not going to be easy, but all you guys seem very capable. And I am going to try and hold you guys to the time, but I have a great helper here to help me with that. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started here with our questions. The first one is, what do you as candidates feel are the best ways to address the widespread population of unhoused persons? Beyond nonprofit work, how can the city get involved, and what can be done to protect citizens and businesses while respecting the dignity of those who are unhoused? And I will go ahead and start my far person here, Mr. Jayme Fowler.
Okay. Kevin, thanks. There's a lot of questions in there. So number one is this, setting aside the work as far as the nonprofits. Mental health is a big component of driving, I think, the unhoused forward and really rehabbing the city. We're making some really big strides in mental health. This year, we're going to be bringing on Laureate at St. Francis, Grand Lake Mental Health, OSU Tulsa, the VA across the street from OSU Tulsa, Indian Health, a huge dearth of mental health services. We're going to start to bring those folks off the street. I think that's very important. As far as our public safety, really, I'd like to see, and we are seeing CRT teams, paramedics, police officers, and mental health. We really want to beef those up even more and really kind of start to transform and reshape what a police force looks like as we go forward. And then probably the last thing is that you really want to make sure the city looks clean, it's crisp. And one of the things that we're working hard and we want to continue to do is clean up the graffiti as we go forward and make sure that the trash is really picked up and is very clean.
Thank you. We'll just move closer towards me for this first question. So, Mr. Nicholes, will you take it from here?
Sure, absolutely. It's a great question. I appreciate the question. I think there's some times where we have this perception about the community that's not always backed up by data, but this is one of those times where that isn't true. Don't have to tell you this, but you know that homelessness has gotten worse by about 8.6% since 2021, and that family homelessness in particular has grown by 34% since 2020. When we talk about education, 900 kids at TPS alone are homeless today, and 1,000 of them are in families facing eviction. So it impacts every aspect of life in this community, and there was an outside poll done that said that 85% of Tulsans don't believe that local government can meet this challenge. And so we're also facing a challenge in which we've lost the faith of people out there in the community. It is for that reason that back in February, I released a strategy on how we get to a place where we end homelessness as we know it, really by focusing on 5 things. 1, appointing a senior advisor to the mayor to lead a citywide strategy and an interagency council on homelessness. 2 is the investment in data systems, outreach workers, and case conferencing, so we can not only make sure that we know homelessness is a problem, but we understand that each and individual need of those folks facing it and make sure we can meet those needs. The 3rd thing is aligning our community investments. Councilor Fowler talked about a lot of them in mental health, substance abuse, and respite care. To address those underlying health issues of those out on the streets. Obviously, we got to invest in our housing stock, may have a long-term commitment to a low-barrier shelter, and create a flexible funding account to make sure we can meet the needs of providers and those who are homeless. The bottom line is the plan that we put out there will make homelessness rare, brief, and non-reoccurring and end in it as we know it.
Thank you. And I just want to say that we're running on a tight schedule here, but the first 2 candidates have done a great job of sticking to that, so thank you. And I really appreciate that, and I know it's tough to get what you want to say out in the time we've given you. So with that being said, Ms. Keith, can you answer the first question?
Yes, I think we all agree that absolutely no one should call our streets home. But we are faced with what we are faced with at this point. And I believe there's kind of a 3-prong approach that we can take to helping solve this. And that is cutting the red tape for developers who are working to build affordable housing and missing middle housing. It's not easy to get this work done through the city. There are all sorts of barriers that come up and slow the work down and make it more expensive. That has to be fixed. That's something the city can do, and I will have somebody appointed to help me work through that because we've got to tackle that. Number 2, the mental health care, getting everybody working from the same page. And today I got to go through Parkside and see the work that they're doing, and I'm so appreciative of it because, I helped get the juvenile facility out of the ground. And they are now helping with some of our juveniles that have issues. And we simply didn't have enough care for juveniles. You've got Grand Mental Health who's working now, and they actually have a van that if you call them, they will come down if somebody's in psychosis on the street and pick them up, and they know how to deal with them. It's really working. I'm so excited about that. But and Jayme kind of pointed out some of the other mental health groups that are coming online. We get the new VA hospital and the mental health hospital. Those things are all going to play into this and help. So we need to work with those mental health agencies as a city and kind of keep everybody working together. And then law enforcement. Let's support our law enforcement. And we've got teams now that are working with mental health providers on the streets. So there's really some good things happening. Don't give up. I really think we're on a trajectory to make this work. So we'll get it done.
Thank you. We will talk a little bit more in 2 questions about mental health. But thank you for trying to stick to that time. We'll go ahead and move to the next question, and we'll start with you, if that's okay. Our roads are in bad shape and seemingly always under construction. What are some innovative solutions to fix our crumbling streets in the short term and long term?
Well, this is a doozy. When we come down Peoria, we go, that's a third world street because it's so bad in certain points. But we need to get the industry experts together with our street department and try to come up with the most innovative ways that we can to get our street work done. And I will tell you, it's a similar issue with housing. There are problems trying to get the work done. We pay the contractors, we're very slow to pay them. Nobody wants to bid to do our street work. And what does that mean for us? It means that we have fewer people bidding. That means that the projects are costing more. So anyway, those are some things that have to be worked out. And again, I'm going to have somebody who is hyper-focused on this issue to help us bring these streets in line. And over time, what we did was we built new things, but we didn't maintain the old. And that's how come we've gotten in this shape. A lot of money has been passed over time to help bring our streets back up to snuff. But it's going to be a process. And I'd like to say you could just fix it magically overnight. But we do have to do everything that we can to make the processes easier and more efficient to get the work done. We can't have these contractors say they come upon a problem. They have to email in order to get an idea of how they can move on because they found an errant pipe. 75 days to wait on an answer. So we have to do things better, and I plan to work on that.
Thank you. All right. Real quick, I apologize. This is no sign of disrespect, but I'm a first name type of person. So if you guys don't mind for the future of this next 10 minutes, if I could use your first name. Monroe, can you move on to your answer to the second question?
Oh, Monroe, move on. Yes. Well, no, thank you for that. I mean, I think, we have obviously a process improvement issue at the city that needs to be cleaned up. I've served on the House Transportation Committee for a couple of years. Back when I was in the mayor's office, we passed the $450 million streets program. And the thing that we always told people to remember is when you're frustrated in traffic, remember the cone is actually a job. So remember that just as to help you out maybe a little bit. But I do think that there's a couple things. Like I'm not going to come up here and promise you the world, but I can promise you 3 things. One is to have complete transparency on projects. I know those projects, not only are they a challenge for traffic, but if you got a business or something like that, having that torn up in front of you impacts your business. And so having full access to real-time information on a project that's right out in front of you, impacting your commuter and impact your business, timeline, the contractor, the cost, who to contact at the city if you need information on that project is one immediate step we can take and do it all by QR code so you don't have to go to www.cityoftulsa / all the things, right? So transparency on those projects. Some new internal processes, so when we rip a street up, making sure that everybody who has an interest in what's underneath that street is at the table, so make sure we don't have to rip something up and rip it up again. And then the first 100 days in office, we'll spend some time really evaluating the Public Works Department and coming up with the things that we have to do over the long haul to make sure that department works well. So I'll say, with my last 15 seconds, in the short term, can certainly promise transparency. In the medium term, we promise process improvement. In the long term, I can promise we'll be more efficient, save the city money, and make sure we have a better project out there on the roads.
Awesome, thank you. Jayme?
Well, I've visited with a lot of small contractors over the last, say, 3 years, and really got to know them and understand some of the issues and some of the concerns I have, and then listening with constituents also. And there's a lot of moving pieces to fixing the streets, but sometimes, every once in a while, there's just simply, literally a small detail. And I'll kind of walk you through one of those small details that is a big quantum issue, is that on every street project, there's what we call a 5% holdback on the value of the project. So if something is not right, there's this 5% holdback. So if you're a small business contractor and you're being assessed this 5% holdback, then you know what? You're not going to bid on it. And you also have to do what we call a surety bond. And that's standard in the industry. So what happens with this 5% holdback is that small business contractors just simply will no longer bid on street business. So here's what happens, and this is very important to you as far as the taxpayers. So if there's less bidding, there's less competition. If there's less competition, the price, the cost of the project just goes up. And that really eats into to the city's budget and the taxpayer dollars. So the first thing I want to do is very easy, just simply eliminate the 5% holdback. It's that simple. So there you go, Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, I've got 2 more questions in about 8 minutes. So you guys are doing great on time. The next question, and if you guys don't mind, I'll go ahead and start with Monroe because he hasn't started with one yet. It's partisanship seems to be on the rise while mental health is declining. How do you plan to unite our city and improve the mental health of its citizens?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I'll say this is a point where I would commend Mayor Bynum for appointing a mental health director at the city. I think that's a great step for the city. But there's no doubt, and we'll see a lot of it this year. I don't think so in this campaign. We'll see a lot in this year where we see the ugliness associated with really our civic public life. And I remember there was this guy named Eric Liu who worked in the Clinton administration, Obama administration. He said the number one question we got to ask ourselves in a civilized society is how we're going to live together. And so I do think the mayor's role is one of unity, but I think it's also reminding us of who we are, the greatness of this community, the oil capital of the world, the center of black wealth, what we are now in the context of being the largest city on Indian reservation. And although all those stories come with, the booms came with the bust, the center of black wealth came with the massacre, we still are working to make sure we do right in standing for tribal sovereignty. But when we think about who we've been, the people who have come through here, this city has an amazing story to tell. And I think talking about how we begin to tackle the challenges we are going to be going over tonight and getting people to believe that we can do it is one good way. The other thing more specifically about mental health, if you look at the data, Tulsa's local data, there's a direct impact on mental health and economic opportunity. Lower income folks in this community are twice as more likely to have 14 or more days, bad mental health days, right? And so the work that we have to do to close the economic gap in this community is actually going to lift us up from a mental health standpoint. And so we may say, oh, there's not a whole lot we can do about that. That's not true. The data doesn't say it's true, and we know it's not true. So I think reminding us of who we are and then meeting those challenges that we have out in front of us is the best way that we can work through what is partnership across this country and show people who Tulsa truly is.
Thank you. Karen?
So I think, again, I believe there is hope on the horizon. And one thing you have to be assured of is that on the local level, you don't have as much partisanship as you see even at the state and certainly at the national level. So we are blessed in that respect that here locally we know that, problems with our streets are not red and blue problems. Mental health issues are not red or blue problems. So all of these things can be addressed if we are working together. And having citizens come together like you're here tonight is one way that we begin to tackle some of these issues. And I know how to work with people to try and get these things done. I'm so grateful. The Senate recently gave me an additional, appropriated $50 million to help finish the levees. I got $137 million from the federal government. So I'm excited that the state is pitching in to help, but I know how to work with other people, work across party lines, because that's what I do, and that's what we have to do in local government, and that's how you get things done. We have a great group of city councilors, but it's imperative that the mayor work with those city councilors if you want to get anything done. So I think when you see your local government working well together, you're going to feel better about government in general, but just look to local government to feel better about how things are going, because it is better than state or national. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jayme?
Kevin, thanks. The city needs really common sense policies that foster a safe place for small businesses, for families, safe neighborhoods, and vibrant parks. All those things add up to a real big positive. Karen talked about the lack of rancor and just this bitterness as far as the politic here at the local level. And I really want to echo that. And one of the great things is that, we've really gotten to know Karen and Monroe and myself. We've really gotten to know, number one, you all, but also I had a great time visiting with Monroe after a few days after our last gathering. And we really kind of shared some of our experiences. He works at the legislature as a minority, and he really got to know the other people on the other side of the aisle. And he figured out, you know what, these people have a lot of this shared issues, concerns, and common experiences that we do. And I can say that also is that, when you work down at City Hall, you find out that it's not us versus them, but you know what, we're all working together, and we've all got a lot more commonality than differences, and I think that's very important. The last thing I'll mention is echo what Karen says, is that it's great to have a director of mental health right in through there. So I'll turn it back over.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we got one more question here, and this one it's a softball, but it's also a really fun one. Hopefully you guys can kind of encapsulate why you love Tulsa. And so I'll start back with you, Jayme, if that's okay, just because there's only three of you. If there was a fourth, I'd start here. So it's describe your perfect day in Tulsa.
So you know what? It's really a Sunday. It's a fun day, and so the first thing I do at 4:30 a.m. is my dog. Sandy and I, my wife, we've got two dogs. Bo, my golden doodle, will bang on the side of the bed. He said it's time to get up. So I go downstairs. And I let Bo out. And I fire up the coffee pot, and he comes in, and I'll give him his three biscuits. You know what? And we'll kind of progress through the morning, and we get ready for church, Sandy and I, and we attend a little church, 56 in Harvard Avenue Christian Church. Great church. Sandy and I serve as deacons there at the church, and we love to greet everybody. After church lunch at the Blue Moon Cafe, hardly if ever miss a Sunday. It's a ritual. We'll walk the dogs on a leash at Mannion Park. We'll oftentimes grill up the barbecue, and then we love detective shows, and we'll watch, our favorite is Bosch. So there you go.
Awesome. Hey, that was less than a minute and a half. Nice job. So we'll move over one more to Monroe, and we'll let Karen finish this off. So go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'll say, on the occasion that I wake up at 4:30, the first thing I do is roll over and go back to sleep. So I commend you for the early start there. Since he was 5 years old, I have a 15-year-old son. So you talk about mental health issues for me. But since he was 5, like my perfect day was probably some sporting event that he was involved in. He's in high school now, but there's nothing like watching somebody you love, a kid or a nephew or a niece or whatever, do something that they love. And so that's always been a perfect day, even though we were talking earlier about the weather sometimes does not cooperate, but those are still really good days. But I will say there's nothing like patio weather in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we're getting very close to it. So I'm really excited about maybe hitting a few patios, drinking some non-alcoholic drinks, all that kind of stuff, But really, the best time, just very consistently, and it may draw back to my first days here in Tulsa, is going to a TU football game, tailgating, seeing your old friends, people coming back like, oh my goodness, Tulsa's awesome now because they've moved on to other places, and so that's always a lot of fun, showing people around and us talking about, oh, what building used to be right there? It was that one, and arguing about stuff to show our age. But it's always great fun to have people on campus at TU. I represent TU in the legislature, so a tailgating day, cheering on your favorite team, even when we lose, is always a good day.
Great, thank you. All right, so Karen, you close us out here before I pass it on to Braden.
So just about every day I wake up is a great day. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I really have fun every day, and it's always been like that for me. So if I'm thinking about my work week, I enjoy going to downtown and work with the county folks and my colleagues because they're absolutely wonderful, and I have great constituents. Yeah, some of them get a little, but it's okay. I'm used to it at this point. But after working, I love to come home. You generally will walk the dog, and who is very anxious. He was not happy when I headed out tonight. He's like, let's go. I'm like, sorry, not tonight. But then we like to grill in the backyard, but if it's been a late day or anything like that, we just live right next to all these great restaurants. And so we'll just wander up there and, by golly, have a wonderful meal. So, and if I can, just since we're right here, normally when we're in here, like last time we were here, Zingo was playing. It was great. The bartenders, they were great too. Not that I had anything, but, and then have you all been to Bishop Quigley's? Oh my gosh, I love it. I feel like I'm in Ireland somewhere. But anyway, it's just fabulous. We have so many great things to do and explore in this community, and I just love all of it. So anyway, that's lots of great days for me.
Awesome, thank you, Karen. That's going to conclude my time as moderator. I will say that last two candidates talked about drinking, whether it's non-alcoholic or alcoholic. And again, I want to thank Donnie and Steve-O for hosting this. You can be either in this town. So you can be, mocktails are getting big, so you can do cocktails and mocktails. But I want to introduce Braden Harper from Mvskoke Media. He's going to take over for me. Come on.
Henshe, Stongo, Braden Harper, Jiha Managing Editor for the Mvskoke Media. Hello, everyone. I'd just like to thank everyone in this room tonight, being out here on this beautiful Monday evening. Thank you for being a part of the democratic process here with our candidates. Candidates, thank you so much for your time today. A little bit about our media department. We are the Mvskoke Media, the independent free press for the Mvskoke Creek Nation. So yeah, without further ado, we'll dig into the questions. Candidates, first of all, I'd just like to say that it is an honor to be here on the stage with you tonight. So we'll dig into the questions. I'll start here, open it up to Ms. Keith here on my left. My first question is, the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled that the city of Tulsa does not have jurisdiction over municipal crime committed by Native Americans that are tribal citizens within the city of Tulsa. If elected, do you intend to comply with this decision, and how so?
All right. I am absolutely committed to following the rule of law. And there are other ongoing cases arguing jurisdictional issues, but this decision means that now, more than ever, we have got to work with our tribes City of Tulsa and our tribal nations to resolve these questions as they linger. We should be able to work through, if you get a traffic ticket, can we share in the fines? And, we've got to work through those issues. And I'm confident that both the nations and the citizens of the city of Tulsa, everybody wants this to be a safe city. And the only way we can do that is by working together. I respect tribal sovereignty and the rule of law, and I recognize that we are all much better off when we are working together, because what we want is a safe and prosperous city.
Thank you, Ms. Keith. Mr. Nicholes.
Sure. Thank you for the question. I mean, when you get elected, you swear an oath to uphold the Constitution, and this is part of that oath. And I'll say, take a little bit of a step further. Late last year, I actually released a strategy on how we co-govern with tribes. I think moving forward, given that this is the largest city, as I mentioned before, that rests wholly on Native reservation, I think it's important that we don't just think about this one court ruling in a vacuum, but really think about how do we co-govern with our tribal nations. And to that end, the one thing that I committed to way back then, maybe the first thing I ever said as far as a policy proposal for the mayors for this campaign, and certainly my administration, was the appointment of a senior director of tribal policy and partnerships to have real authority in how we are addressing these issues to make sure this is the safest big city in the country. I've had conversations with Chief Hill, Chief Standing Bear, and Chief Hoskin, and I think we all are agreed on one thing. We want Tulsa to be a safe city. They want their respective reservations to be safe for all citizens. We are all aligned on that. The technical and the legal challenges that we have to figure out, those are things that we don't, I think we can pull some of that out of court. We can sit around the table of partnership and get it done. It starts with respect. It starts with making sure that as they are fighting every day to maintain tribal sovereignty, that we fight right there with them. Why? Because we are inhabitants of their reservation, and our administration will make sure that we not only respect tribal sovereignty, but we will co-govern with tribes from day one.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholes. Councilman Fowler.
Braden, thanks. The 10th Circuit Court made the ruling, and that's where we currently stand. So yes, I will definitely comply and make sure that's job number one. Our only solution is to have tribal agencies, TPD and the mayor's office really streamline the processes, negotiate processes, and really strive to make our community safer and make it work not only for our tribal brothers and sisters, but also our citizens also. We all work together. When we all work together, it's much better outcomes. The negotiations aren't always easy, and they always need to be done out of respect for everyone involved. And, as your mayor, I really want to make sure that process is very thoughtful and respectful for not only our citizens, but for our tribal brothers and sisters also. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilman. So my second question, and Councilman, I'll start with you if you don't mind. Currently, the Mvskoke Creek Nation has a civil lawsuit in the U.S. District Court against the City of Tulsa that is seeking to permanently enjoin Tulsa from exercising criminal jurisdiction over tribal citizens absent express authorization from Congress. If elected, how do you plan to resolve this lawsuit?
Well, the city's responsibility is to maintain communication with the tribes and the Oklahoma AG, the Oklahoma Attorney General. This suit largely covers the state courts and the prosecution, which is the city of Tulsa has no active involvement in this. The city of Tulsa will always be involved in the enforcement of the laws and will always detain those that are breaking the law. If the tribe wants to detain a person for a prosecution, and then they can be transferred to their court. If not, then that person will be given to the state for prosecution.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Nicholes.
Thank you. I mean, I think this is somewhat covered in the last answer. And so I may sound like a broken record. I do think that look, the city filed suit against the tribes. The tribes have followed suit, and that's what happens when you don't have a relationship built on trust, where you don't have a relationship built on understanding, where you don't have a relationship built on respect. So I do think with the co-governing strategy that we've put out there, it sets an important reset. We talk about our shared goals for the city and making sure that we are working to not only uphold tribal sovereignty, but also are concerning ourselves with the full rights of every tribal citizen living in this community while we protect public safety. The reality is this is not an easy thing to work through, but it is also not something that has to be this difficult and this adversarial. And so again, look, I've watched over the last 4 years, 5 years as the relationship with the tribes has completely deteriorated between the tribes and the governor. Those are mistakes that I will not make as mayor. In fact, we will start, as I said before, day one thing. There's not an accident that talking about co-governing with the tribes was the first thing that I talked about in this campaign, because I absolutely believe, not just when it relates to public safety, but when it relates to job creation, when it relates to us ending homelessness, when it relates to us meeting our education goals, this co-governing work with the tribes is one of the great advantages Tulsa has. Yeah, we got some technical challenges to work through. We got some public safety issues to work through, but it is the way forward for Tulsa, and I look forward to leading.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholes. Ms. Keith.
Well, I'll be anxiously following what happens in the courts. I think we're all interested to see how that comes out. And then I just think it's critically important that we work with our tribal partners. And I look forward to a cooperative relationship with the tribes and not a litigious one. And I think having those relationships, as Monroe said, matters. And I know that the leaders of our three nations very well. I have great respect for the nations and their sovereign governments, and I will be working directly with them. I won't have a liaison because I have such great respect for these leaders that I feel like, as the mayor of this community, I need a one-on-one relationship to work with them. So I really look forward to that. And I will tell you, at Tulsa County, they've helped us with road projects, and I've watched as they've worked with health in their own communities and education and doing great things for their seniors. Our tribes are investing in the right areas. And so we have much more in common than not. And all of our area leadership with the nations, they want a good relationship with the city of Tulsa and with the state of Oklahoma. And they want to work together because they understand as we work together, we're all that much stronger. And I really look forward to day one being able to work well with the nations and working through these technical issues, which we will have to do.
Thank you, Ms. Keith. For my next question, I'll start with you again, Ms. Keith.
Okay.
This is a little bit more simple, bit more of a yes or no. Have you met with any tribal leaders concerning your campaign, and have any tribal governments endorsed or donated to your campaign?
Yes and yes. So, yeah, absolutely. And I will continue to work with the tribes as a partner. And again, I've watched them invest in housing and safe roads, healthcare, and education. They're doing important work around the state, in Tulsa County, and in our region. So I have met with the region's tribal leaders, and I have a good working relationship with them. They know that I have deep respect for the history and for the work that they are doing. So on day one, I will be working in lockstep to address issues that all of us are facing in Tulsa with our tribal partners.
Thank you, Ms. Keith. Mr. Nicholes.
Yeah, I have certainly met with all the leaders of the tribes here on the reservation, but also in addition to that, I think I'm maybe the only person on the stage who met with the leaders of the 5 civilized tribes at the Intertribal Council executive meeting. And in that, we definitely that we can move Tulsa forward together. And so having those conversations about the pathway forward has been critically important. And so I have gotten some investment from the Osage Nation, and that is not just built on a relationship started when I ran for mayor. It's a relationship started before I was ever in the legislature, and it's built on years and years and years of standing with tribes, no matter if it was a very popular issue or is a very difficult issue. And that is because, part of my service from my very first day in Tulsa has been in close collaboration connection with tribal citizens who are my friends. And the leaders became my friends, and folks who have dedicated their lives to serving their nation in many ways, like I've dedicated my life to serving Tulsa. So, for me, it's been not just about, hey, I want to talk to you about this campaign. It's, Chief Hill, Chief Standing Bear, Chief Hoskin. Let's talk about how we move Tulsa forward together, and how do we partner to make this the very best place in the country for Native Americans, Native Tulsans, Native Oklahomans, and everybody who wants to experience Native culture because of our unique situation here as the largest city in the country on a reservation.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholes. Councilman Fowler.
I have not yet sat down with the tribal leaders yet. I'm really looking forward to sitting down and having that open dialogue and finding out the issues, the concerns, and the opportunities that are on the horizon. Would I accept donations from one of the tribes? I would not, and I just think that is a very serious conflict of interest. So I think you always want to work with people at arm's length with no hidden strings attached. And I think that ethics are extremely important. And when you do things at arm's length without any financial remunerations, I think that's very, very important. I'm always open to dialogue. I have yet to lose a relationship that I've listened to much. I really deeply believe in just simply listening. And some of my city council meetings, I will never say a word. I mean, I can go almost like a whole day and never say a word. And, here we are talking at great lengths. But finding out and listening and understanding the issues, I think that's very important. And I look forward to sitting down and having that dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Fowler. I have one last question. This one's a little bit breezier. So I'll start with you, Councilman Fowler. The Creek Nation, the historic Creek Nation Council Oak Park, just a few blocks up the road, is in need of restoration and service. Do you have any ideas on how to revitalize the city-owned park? And would you be open to working with other entities like Riverview Neighborhood Association or the Mvskoke Creek Nation to work on that?
As a matter of fact, we had a presentation from the neighborhood, from the tribes, and I want to give a big shout out this evening to Councilor Laura Bellis. And one of the things that we've really worked hard at during COVID, we worked very, very hard at what we call leveraging the capital stack. So one of the things that we'll do is that we'll take money from the city, in this case the tribes, and other sources and stack it. And Councilor Bellis, give a big wave. There you go. Councilor Bellis was so thoughtful to put forth a portion of her community development dollars from the city, which the other councilors we do have to vote on and approve. But she's going to take $500,000 from her community development dollars and put towards the park. Cheryl Cohenauer from the Cherokee tribe presented tremendous elevations, etchings, artwork about the future park. It's going to be big. It's going to be exciting, and we're really excited to be a part of that. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councilman Fowler. Mr. Nicholes.
That's a great question. And first of all, I want to say Laura Bellis is my city councilor. Thank you very much. Shout out to you. I'm actually, I'll say yes to your question. Would certainly prioritize the park. I'm a big believer though in the folks who are in the community helping drive what the community should look like. And so, what would be my ideas for the park? My question would be, what are your ideas for the park? and holding me accountable and us as a city accountable for making the investments to make it happen. I mentioned the tribal policy that we put forth last year. In addition to the investment in the park, we also talked about the establishment of a Native Center. That could be really the place where you go for culture and economic development and opportunity, and to be able to really think about really reviving the life of Native Tulsans and Native Oklahomans here. And so I think that this is an important part. We should be really the welcome, the gateway to Indian country. And I think a park, absolutely, thank you. I think a park that's reflective of that is critically important. So you can count on it being a priority for me, in addition to not just stopping at the park, but leaning fully into making sure that this community, when you come here, it is clear where you at. You're on the reservation, baby. And so well, I'll certainly prioritize it.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholes. And last but not least, Ms. Keith.
All right. I cannot wait to work with the Mvskoke Creek Nation and this neighborhood on that park. I'm very, very familiar with it, and I will tell you something. I absolutely adore Morning Prayer by Dan Brook. And if you haven't been to Council Oak, go look at that. It's just a magnificent piece of art, and nobody hardly sees it. So I can't wait to have it more visible, but it also needs to look a lot better. And having partnerships will make all of that happen. We were doing the juvenile center. I called Dan and I said, Dan, I love this piece of art. I would really like to maybe see what it would cost to have you do a piece for us. Well, it didn't work out, but I had a great conversation with him. And anyway, here's the thing. Once we get that park looking fabulous, and then Dreamkeepers Park with the great vision that's planned for that, that node is going to become a wonderful, not just for the neighborhood, but for the whole entire area and for folks who come into Tulsa. It's going to be a place to be, a place to stop, and a place to come and appreciate our roots, which are our native tribes who have done so much for our region. So I'm all in on this baby, and I am excited about the opportunity to work with everybody, and especially, the neighborhood has got to weigh in on what this ultimately looks like. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keith. Well, that about wraps it up for this segment of questions for tonight. I just wanted to thank you all again, and thank you to the Riverview Neighborhood Association. Mado.
Thank you, Braden. You guys also give it up for Jared back here on the camera running it. I got a text while I was sitting down there, and somebody was watching online and thought how cool it was, and so I'd share that with you, Jared. Doing an amazing job. You've got tens of people watching online. Well, we got a terrific job. Kevin and Braden, thanks for leading us through that time. Candidates also did a terrific job. How's everybody feeling? Ready for the last round?
Yes.
All right, we'll get in it. We might not get all four questions in.
Are we in the lightning round now, or?
It's got to be lightning because we want to be punctual and end at 8:30 and respect everybody's time. All right. As I mentioned, I wish I would have written this down. This came from a neighbor in town, and I did not write his name down or her name down. But this question is something that a lot of folks have been asking, and I don't know exactly when the timetable could happen that we get to this point, but when will Tulsa be ready to implement a more robust mass transit system? Because we feel like this is vital to the equitable growth in our city. We will start with you, Monroe, on this one. I don't think you've started one yet.
Sure. Hey, I'm happy to start. I actually would say on our current course, I can't answer if all things are equal or now. I'm not really sure. And I don't think that this, I know we have a system that we would all say doesn't meet the needs of this community. It would be easy to point the finger at a past administration or a person. I'm not sure that's the case. What it often seems like is that we have some piecemeal solutions that are pilots, and the pilots never turn into a systems change. And I think what What I can commit to, because I'm not gonna pander and make promises I can't keep, is to really look and evaluate it, to work with the counselors, to work with our regional partners, and figure out how we can have a comprehensive system that meets the needs of folks all across this community. I can tell you, this shows up in places that you wouldn't necessarily always think. My team and I met with an organization called Justice Link, which help folks who are, in vulnerable situations make their court cases and things like that, right? They spent $25,000 in 1 month trying to get people to navigate around town to do that. That's not economically feasible for this community. That's one small organization doing that. And so what I can commit to is making sure that in the first term of office, we will make sure we change the way we move folks across this city. I think it's going to take some time. I think we have it within ourselves to do it. I think there's been a lot of great ideas on how you get there. But I do think it's going to take a mayor who's an implementer, not just a mayor who just has 1,000 ideas.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll move on to Commissioner Keith.
Okay, so here's the deal. We have new leadership at was Tulsa Transit, is now Metrolink. His name is Scott Marr. And Scott's been here for 2 years. And when I first met him, I'm like, Scott, why do we have these big buses going down our street and nobody's on them? He's like, I'm going to work on that. So he's put together, it's almost like an Uber system, and it's micro transit, and it's smaller vans, and they'll pick you up and take you to a major hub. So he's really put people who really didn't have great access in the past, giving them better access. This man has fantastic ideas, and he is working to move our system forward. And then I just love this guy. The ridership has doubled in 1 year using the microtransit. Ridership has doubled, so that matters. And he has innovative ideas and suggestions, and he did not make fun of me when I said, why can't we have a train that might connect from the Jazz Hall of Fame to Jinx along that track? He goes, we can. We just have to work together to do that. Okay, thank you. Well, how about this? Why can't we have a train from Tulsa to Oklahoma City, a high-speed train like they have in Asia and other places? I want it. And he goes, we can. It's an 80-20 match, meaning 80% of the money would come from the feds and 20 from all whether Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and the state, perhaps.
Thank you, Commissioner Keith.
Okay. Anyway, thank you. I'm excited about transit. Don't hang your head low on this one.
Meanwhile, the Turnpike Authority is widening the road all the way to Oklahoma City for more cars. Mr. Fowler.
Well, I'm going to echo Karen, and I've spent a good bit of time with Scott also, and spot on. So one of the things that you recognize when you're driving through the city of Tulsa and you spot one of these buses, number one, they're really, really big, and more often than not, they're really, really empty. So to add more big buses on big routes, it's the reality that's just simply not the order of the day anymore. And I'm going to echo, Commissioner Keith, the folks there at with the bus service is that they recognize is that they need to have small, nimble, very, very flexible routes, very, very similar to Uber, and that, they can change and move according to market conditions, weather conditions, whatever the issues, they can move on a dime. And what were once economies of scale where you needed to be really big to do things are now what we call diseconomies of scale. You need to be small, you need to be nimble, you need to be flexible. So I'm going to echo that, and that's where we're going on the horizon, and we're right on the cusp of introducing that. I can't see the time. There we go.
There we go. We're zero.
Thank you all very much. Yeah.
Let me challenge the position just a moment to candidates to also consider that when we think of mass transit, we often think about that as a low-income mode of transportation. But what would it be to have a city where all income levels are relying on mass communication instead of their individual vehicles, and what would it look like to have infrastructure that supports that. So instead of talking about more micro, smaller, but what grander thing can we do to work together to save on the environment and save on all the footprint that we put in, the carbon footprint we put in the air. Think about that for next town hall. With the completion of Zinc Lake coupled with the planned development at Crybaby Hill, there is obvious much anticipation that Riverside from 11th to 31st will be a major recreational regional attraction for citizens. Current facilities there now, if you've been recently, especially down towards 11th Street and the pedestrian bridge there, are in a state of blight due to lack of oversight and unenforced curfews. Do you have a plan to make this public space safe for all the public to utilize? We'll start with Mr. Fowler.
Well, number one, let's take an inventory of the facilities and let's review. If they need to be replaced, then let's replace them. Number two, let's vigorously enforce the curfew laws. So if you're close to where the parks are, they should be a positive and not a detriment to your life and your family. Let's make it accessible for all citizens. The highest level of customer service, if there are issues or problems, let's make sure that, you know what, people in the community, they have access to communicate those issues and those problems, that we get them fixed very, very quick. I really think that we ought to have a Ritz-Carlton, a Chick-fil-A level of service, and it's very, very important that the city is always responsive to issues, concerns, and needs and opportunities as we go forward.
Thank you. Monroe?
Sure. Yeah, no, this is a kind of important question from a personal standpoint. For me, I mentioned I have a 15-year-old son, so like public safety means a whole lot to me. He's getting ready to start driving. He's going to be going places, and so making sure that all these spaces are safe are critically important, especially places where kids and families are going to go. I do think that part of this is us addressing that homelessness issue. Now, I don't mean that to say that folks who are unhoused are just inherently dangerous or they're the whole set of the public safety challenge. But I do think we have to make sure that we are addressing those issues and making sure that we are certainly enforcing curfews. But the other thing is I've spent really the better part of the last 4 years in the legislature working on this blight issue. And so I will say, if you want to call your senator, tell him to help me get House Bill 2038 passed off the Senate floor. It's already been out of the House. And that's going to be the most aggressive tool we'd ever have at the city to help address the issue of blight. I think the big thing is that, you know, we certainly will always make sure that when we have something we've made a public investment, that it is safe. So we never have to trade safety for entertainment. But I think overall, the challenge is making sure the rest of the city is safe as well. I talk about making sure this is the safest big city in the country, whether that is the opportunity to go enjoy something recreationally or just being in a neighborhood that folks feel safe when they are here. We have some really big opportunities to draw people in this community, for folks here to enjoy the quality of life. We cannot have people feeling like they have to trade their safety for a good time. And so I do think it does take aggressive action. It also takes the city getting our act right on those blighted properties that belong to us and beyond. And so I'm very much committed to that.
Thank you, Monroe. And Karen?
Okay. Well, this specific area that we're talking about, there's been a fight over, is it ODOT, is it City of Tulsa? So one of the first things that I'm going to do is sit down and work out a plan between those two entities to make sure that it's cleaned up, because the lights are out, there's cobwebs, it's in bad shape. So that'll be one of the first things that I'm going to do. Then I'm excited that Crybaby Hill area, the mayor's going to work to get a boat dock down there, and that's going to be great. It's going to be themed, I think, of Crybaby Hill, and that'll be in time for the Route 66 event. So that's a good step in the right direction. But I have been working for 20 years. I've been talking about the Cyrus Avery Bridge. I would like to see that bridge fixed. It is the single most important piece of Route Route 66 in this state, because Route 66 would not have come to Tulsa without that bridge. Let's reimagine it. You can Google Tulsa World and look at the renderings that we had Dewberry do for the Route 66 bridge, and I think you'll get psyched about it. But it's something, here's the deal, with all the medical hub that's coming online on both the east side and the west side, they need restaurant and retail. We can't add land there, so that new reimagined bridge is a place where you could do little restaurant and retail and really lift up that whole area, but connect that medical hub. So I'm super psyched about what can be in that area, but I need all of you all to look at that. Is this something you agree with? Would you be supportive of it? And which one of the renderings do you like best? So all ears, please let me know. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Keith. Super psyched. I love that. I love that term. Collaboration, we've got 2 more questions. Collaboration with other stakeholders, including city council members, community leaders, and businesses, is key to effective governance. How will you foster collaboration and build consensus to achieve your goals for Tulsa? We'll start with you, Karen.
Okay. Well, it's what I've always done. My 16 years here at the county, I've been able to get a new juvenile center out of the ground. I've been able to get working with the federal government, with Senator Inhofe. We're very politically very different, but we worked together to get $137 million to repair the levees. And then just recently going to the Senate Appropriations Committee and talking with them about this issue, and they're going to help us shore up the cost overruns that we're experiencing because of inflation to get that project done. I worked with the state, and I mean, we called it all the colors of the money, but when we did the Gilcrease extension, it had been on the books for 60 years. So that is a beautiful facility, and it's opened up all sorts of things in West Tulsa. So I do know how to work with people, and I really don't care whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or independent. I like to get work done. I have another way of saying that, but I won't do that tonight. So, but all these issues are not red and blue. It's just, let's work together. Let's do the work and find common ground on what it is we want to accomplish, and then let's get after it. And that's exactly what I like to do. It's what I've demonstrated for all these years that I can do, and I will continue to do this as your mayor.
Councilman Fowler, how would you build collaboration?
Well, sometimes it's in big things, and I'll go back sometimes. I'll reiterate it again. It's really oftentimes just simply attention to detail, and I've just visiting with constituents along Peoria from 35th to I-44, property owners right in through there. I found out that you really couldn't do much with the property because it was all in a floodplain. So I sat down and we took a look at the city flood plan, and we found out the models had been used since the early 90s, and all that property in there, the commercial property, was from the models 6 feet underwater. And you really couldn't do a lot with it. So I sat down with city engineers, and you know what? We used new 3D modeling, and then we changed the flood plan from 6 feet to 3 to 6 inches. And it opened up hundreds of millions of dollars of new development. Just simply attention to detail. We didn't ask for any tax dollars. Very, very easy, very straightforward. So it is very important to communicate, to collaborate, to work with people in departments, people there in the county, there at the state, very important. Collaborate, I think it's very important, but it's also important to be accountable. And oftentimes when you collaborate, you're not accountable. So I think as a mayor, you've got to be a leader, and you've got to make tough decisions.
Thank you, Mr.
I want to
Fowler.
do that.
Thank you. Time is up. Lastly,
Sure.
Monroe.
I mentioned a little bit earlier kind of the different stops along the way in my career. Everything from working to create those after-school programs at City Hall. I remember we got elected, the Mvskoke Center, which is a crowning jewel of downtown, was an budget hole in the ground, and it was that. I watched that come out of the ground. Then I watched the ballpark come out of the ground when we moved City Hall. I went on to serve as chief of staff, where we now have cut that life expectancy gap about in half in this community, created jobs at Career Tech. Certainly am proud of the work that we've done to improve student outcomes at Impact Tulsa. And I mention all that because that's all been done by folks in this community who came together and decided we wanted something different. That it might be difficult, but difficult did not mean it wasn't possible. And not all of them were elected officials, right? There were folks who just showed up every day. They cared about this community. And I think we've done the work to change the face of this community in a lot of different ways. I think being mayor is very similar. I got to the legislature, and I work every day with like 81 people who I disagree with a lot. But I found a way to work with them, and we got affordable housing, the affordable housing tax credit expanded to Tulsa. We did that because we knew that collaboration is more important, and what happens in this community is far more important than what may divide us at the Capitol. And so I think it's built on trust. And at the end of the day, Jayme mentioned accountability. A mayor has to be someone who doesn't change their mind because the last person who talked to them convinced them to do something different. It is about being consistent. It is about being resolute. And it is about making sure at the end of the day we are all joined by our shared vision of where this community can go and the accountability for making it happen.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask candidates that we keep the response to 45 seconds. Timekeeper, 45 seconds. So very short, so we can respect everyone's time. The question is, it is no secret there's huge obstacles to overcome on our public education system at the moment, especially here in Tulsa. What initiatives do you have to improve education outcomes, support teachers, and ensure every child in Tulsa has access to quality education? Representative Nicholes, we'll start with you. 45 seconds, please.
45 seconds on an issue that is not that important, right? No. Look, this is an area where I've spent my career. I founded Impact Tulsa, as I said. I work at Strive Together now. It's involved in this work. And this can be a little bit quick for me because I released a plan on how we're going to redefine the mayor's role in education. That's going to be anchored by the creation of the Mayor's Office of Children, Youth, and Families, so we take a comprehensive look on how we're serving folks, particularly those who are vulnerable. I mentioned earlier, 900 kids at TPS are homeless. 1,000 of them are facing evictions right now. We have to make sure that as a city and as mayor, I'm not asking the school district to deal with my affordable housing problem, but not holding myself accountable for their literacy problem. And so the reality is it's taking ownership of this issue, redefining the role of the mayor, and we've put out very specific ways that we can do it. And since this is a short answer, I'll make sure I get it to you all so everybody at this meeting can see what that plan looks like.
Very good. Thank you. Councilman Fowler.
Education, it's near and dear to my heart. My mom and dad were career public school teachers. Sandy, my wife, out in the audience, many years with Tulsa Public Schools also. I read on Thursday afternoons. I'm a reading partner to a girl, second grader at Lewis and Clark. Deeply, deeply believe in that. I established a Teacher of the Year award, a $100,000 endowment for Marshall and McClure for the Teacher of the Year award, and that will go on in perpetuity. Let's roll that across the city. Let's really build it out. Let's do it for the rest of the city. We've got to reimagine our high schools. And you know what? It's going to take a lift from everybody here. We're going to have to reimagine our schools, corporate engagement, corporate dollars, philanthropic dollars, tax dollars to rebuild vibrant high schools that are college preparatory, and then also trade schools to get our kids ready that would like to have a trade. And it's a wonderful, virtuous thing to have a trade.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. And lastly, Commissioner Keith.
So I come from a family of educators, and I have spoken with the administrators here in the Tulsa area, teachers and parents, and I know a lot of the concerns. We've all heard some of the negative rhetoric coming out of the state. And as mayor, I think the mayor needs to be a champion for education and talking about the great things that our public schools are doing. And they are doing great things. The headlines tell a totally different story, but we do have amazing teachers. But all this negative rhetoric is making it much harder to recruit teachers. And we need to make sure that Tulsa is a place where people want to come and these teachers want to come here and live. So as a mayor, I'm going to be a champion for our educators, for our students, and for our schools, lifting them up and celebrating all of the wonderful things they're doing.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your thoughtful answers all night, for your consideration in being here tonight to share your vision. We want to give each candidate 2 minutes now to kind of wrap up the evening with their closing statement, to earn your vote, to share anything that you wish you would have said earlier. This is your moment. You've each got 2 minutes. And we'll just go from this end, from that end to this end. We'll start with you, Councilman Fowler.
Well, there we go. Number one is that I am not a politician. And we have spent the last dozen years building the infrastructure. And if you're building the infrastructure, you need to have someone that's deeply embedded and understands government. On the other hand, the next 10 years going forward, we're not going to be so much working on infrastructure. Yes, we will, but we've got to grow the city. It's imperative. The city hasn't grown in 30 years. You're going to need a different kind of mayor. You're going to need a mayor that understands economics and how to grow the city. It's very, very important. Deeply love and care for the city and its citizens. Whoever you are, love you very much. And I just really think that Tulsa's best chapters have yet to be written. I deeply believe that very, very much. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll echo the thank yous for the organizers of this event. Also, it's always great to see you, Commissioner Keith and Councilor Fowler, my man. Yeah. And I think, at the end of the day, I'll say this. I think this community has a really difficult choice to make. There's folks who deeply love this community who are competing to be your next mayor. And as we go through the campaign, there'll be maybe some clear differences in this race. And we'll have to point those out, but I do respect the service of the two people on the stage with me, and I appreciate not only them being here tonight, but what they've done on behalf of citizens across this city. Tonight we've talked about a lot of issues. We've talked about homelessness. We've talked about tribal relationships. We've talked about education. There's only one person on the stage that has released any plans specifically about how they'll address any one of those three issues, and I've done all three of them. We have talked about the rhetoric from what we hear from the state as it relates to education, all these things. There's only one person on the stage who's made any public comment and pushing back against those things. Not because I like to always wade myself in the things that are controversial, but because values matter. This community matters to me. And so as I think about where we're going to go as a community, we're going to go wherever we want to go. I got asked at a town hall one time, what was my signature thing that I wanted, what's my legacy project for a city? And I told them I remember seeing a picture of Nashville from 2020, the skyline from 2012, and the skyline at 2022, and it was completely different. It was clear that that city had figured out how to clean its processes to speed up development. It figured out how to make sure that kids are meeting their academic outcomes. It figured out how to make that city safe as it develops. And I see that for this community. But it won't happen if we simply choose to elect somebody who we may have known the longest, or we simply elect somebody who may be reflective of our political party. This has to be about a clear vision for the future, and I look forward to building that vision with each one of you as we move throughout the campaign.
And Commissioner Keith, wrap up the night.
I think I've demonstrated over my years of public service that I'm not afraid of the tough stuff. And I also recognize that relationships are critical to moving the needle forward. And that's a strategy that I will use throughout my administration. I will build relationships with our city councilors because as mayor, you can't do very much if you're just setting yourself up on a pedestal. You've got to work with our city councilors who are kind of the boots on the ground. And we have some really good ones here, so I'm excited about that. I do want to tackle the issues of homelessness, and I am absolutely targeting a way that we fix permitting and help our developers do the work that they want to do. I want to see our streets fixed, and I know what the issues are in those areas. So, yeah, I mean, maybe I look like the old guard here, but I've been around. I know how things work, and I also know how to fix them. And that's what I want to do for this community that I love dearly. And our city should be on an upward trajectory. And of course, I believe that it is. Can we make improvements? Absolutely. Let's continue that upward trajectory. Let's continue to celebrate all our successes. And then with everybody here weighing in, what is it we want to do next? You know, how do we fix our bus system? How do we get others to ride it? I know we're going to have we have more electric buses coming online. I celebrate that we have somebody in that position now who is really looking to the future. So we have so much to celebrate, a lot of work to do, but I am up to the challenge. I think I've demonstrated that over the years, and I just appreciate all of you being here, the organizers putting this together, and letting us just tell you what our vision is. And I do want the Cyrus Avery Bridge fixed. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, Councilman Jayme Fowler, Representative Monroe Nicholes, Commissioner Karen Keith. I was chatting with a friend before we started tonight, and he had all 3 pamphlets laid out in front of him. And I said, well, you know who you got to vote for? He goes, do we have to decide tonight? I was like, you've got some time. Elections are in August, but your next mayor very well could be on this stage, and we appreciate them being here. We'll be up for a little bit. We'll be open for a little bit, Donnie. Yeah. Hey, tip the bartender, get a drink on the way out, consume it here, and then leave. But give them their thanks, if nothing else, for hosting us tonight. You all be good. We'll see you around.